Welcome everyone. Today's Voice and Song Summit is going to be about building confidence in your voice, and this idea of not believing in your voice and comparing your voice to other people, I guess. And even in terms of singing, because I know that a lot of my voice experts are also singers. It's interesting. And we all struggle with this idea of not sounding how we'd like to sound. And also that idea that we should sound a certain way, because a lot of music teaching implies that it should sound a certain way, like a clear voice or a clear tone is a certain type of tone. So I'm interested in talking a little bit about that, because even though we might be kind of discouraged during our schooling years in terms of like what our voice should sound like, and feeling like we're being criticized, in the realm of music on the radio, we hear lots of different kinds of voices. It's not about that nice tone that they look for in your choir, perhaps. So we actually, as people, don't really care, I think, as much about this nice sound. And even in being in tune isn't always essential for someone to love a singer or to love a song. So let's have a bit of a chat about that. And our experts today, I'd like to introduce Mark Cox. Mark is he frees the voice through his work as a coach, and he works with sound, but it's mainly to help you to find freedom within your body, within your mind, and to bring a holistic approach to your voice. Mark, I'd love you to introduce yourself a bit better than that, because that was just off the cuff from my memory. So tell us a little bit more about what you do. Let me pin your video as well. And maybe you could pipe in on the topic for today.
Sure. Thanks, Aideen. So I work with Free Voice, and I work to help people find free and then share their authentic voice with the world. I believe that every person has a unique voice and the world needs it. So I think that both of those things are incredibly true. So for that reason, I work with people that have had some level sometimes of maybe performance aspect. Um, and that can be on stage as a singer or a public speaker, working a lot with speakers now. Um, but that can also be just people that have had a really hard time in their past and have had their voice shut down by life experiences. And so sharing what they really want, sharing what they really need to say no to, can be very difficult at times. And so coming to a place where they find safety in sharing their story, sharing their hurts, sharing their pain, but also sharing their delights and their desires, can be rough and hard, but providing space for that to practice and to put that into practice is really important. So that's a little bit about what I do, and the aspects that I take. And just dealing with some of the things that you were talking about, Aideen. It can be really important to have that. I've used affirmations a lot, right? So you overcome certain things, and you see this all over social media. And some people have these positive affirmations. And what I've noticed in the work that I do is that people that use affirmations, sometimes saying them out loud can be really helpful, because then you get another picture into what you're really telling yourself when you say that. Because sometimes when people say affirmations, they are actually communicating to themselves that it will never be true for me, right? You can say something, and the tone of your voice actually is telling a more true story than the words that you're saying. And that's true for anyone. If you hear someone say the words, "I really appreciate you," when you could hear that in a couple different tones, that may actually reveal that, oh, they don't have any appreciation at all for me. Right? And so when you say them out loud, that's been a key thing to be able to notice with some of the people that I work with, is the tone of voice, the way your voice is communicating, underneath and above and within the words that you're using is actually even more important than the words themselves.
Wow, that's so true. I loved what you said. The tone of the voice tells a story more true than the words you're saying. That could be, you could put that all over your website, Mark, because it's so beautiful. It's so true. So, so true. And I love affirmations as well. I think my very first affirmation was I am enough. That was my very first one that I kind of needed the most, and I put it on my phone and stuff like that. And um I think different, and we need to remind ourselves of that as well. And the I am enough phrase also implies that it's safe for me to be me. And this idea you mentioned, safety, um I suppose the idea is that you get a family or you get parents that give you safety, right? That they kind of give you a space where you kind of feel like you can just be yourself, or you have teachers that maybe create an environment that allow you to feel safe to be you. But we do get a lot of mixed messages around that, don't we, Mark?
Absolutely. And ideally, 18, it certainly is ideal that you have parents, you have friends, you have family, you have those safe spaces built into society. Um, but we live in a world that is not perfect and is not ideal in so many ways. And so having to wrestle with those things is important. And so there are some people that don't have family that is safe. They don't have community that is safe. They don't have friends that are safe. And so one of the things that is important for my work is to find those people in particular where honesty may cost them too much in their real life. And they need to be able to practice that authentic voice somewhere else that is not going to come back to bite them. Because that can be really fearful for a lot of people who've had negative experiences.
There could be a very deep rejection. I think the voice, our voice is so it's so connected to our truest self. It's so connected to how you really feel on your insides, that when we get a criticism related to the voice, like, oh, you shouldn't have said it like that, or you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't what, like, that sounded bad. And it's something that we don't think we can change. We don't realize that we actually can improve these things. But when we hear that, we just feel like it's just like that. It's like a dagger to your heart almost.
Mhm.
Why do you think why do you think we're so harsh when somebody isn't, when their voice, so there's so many harsh things people say, like, don't give up your day job, and um you know there's a lot of kind of words people use that imply that if you don't have a good voice, you should shut that voice down. Like, there doesn't seem to be
Mm,
a room to grow there. It's like almost as if your voice is just no good or your voice is good. That's like there's no kind of in between with voice, really,
yeah,
especially for singers. Sometimes that's implied.
yeah. I think there's a couple different reasons. I think one is, and this is probably the minority. I would like to believe it is anyway. That there are just some malicious people that really get a kick out of being demeaning towards others, right? There are people like that. I think there are a lot fewer than what some of us may believe. Um, but I don't think that that doesn't exist. I think more common is just plain ignorance. They don't realize what they're saying is hurtful. In fact, they may think it's a funny joke, right? And I think it often comes from them not having the confidence in their own person and their own voice, right? So they don't have the confidence to stand in the room and be present and be who they are. And so they have to come up with something that they think maybe is funny. So they'll say something like, well, don't quit your day job, because then maybe people will chuckle and that gives them the feeling that they're liked, right? And so it really comes from a place of their own insecurity. So really the work that I'm doing is important both for the person who's received the criticism, but it's also important for the people that maybe find themselves to be giving it, but from a place that goes, I think I'm actually the one who's hollow inside, and I want to convince myself that everyone else is just as hollow so that I can feel accepted somehow. And so there's a little weird dichotomy there. I find a lot of times it's important to address things in the workplace, because that's oftentimes where that can take place. And I think because in the workplace there's such a very clear power dynamic. There's a boss, there's employees, employers, there's someone over you, there's someone under you. We know the structure. And so what happens is that the job of every person underneath someone else is to be on the agenda of the person over them. And really what we're doing when we're shutting down someone's voice, we're saying you're that thing you said, the thing you want, or the direction you're headed, it's not part of my agenda, and so it needs to change. Right? There isn't space for that part of you here, because what there's space for is my agenda. Even in like a family environment where there are a spouse shutting down the voice of another spouse, or parents shutting down the voice of children in the home, really what they're saying is there's not space for that agenda because it doesn't align with my agenda. Right? And they use the power dynamic that is present to really kind of control, coerce, manipulate, and to shut down the voice that's being spoken, rather than welcoming it and engaging with it. It doesn't have to be seen as an attack, to have
Yeah.
someone disagree with you, but often it feels that way.
I know, because so many people feel afraid. Fear is the biggest, I mean, it's such a big motivator, especially in today's world. And control is a way to help us feel that fear, to alleviate that fear. I was thinking of the, I don't know, the powwow, the Native American kind of, I don't know much about this, but in my limited knowledge, as far as I know, they start off with the youngest person there gets to say what their piece, and every single person gets to say something, but the last word goes to, but everyone gets heard first. And I just thought that was amazing to be in an environment where everyone's voice is respected in that way. Obviously there's still going to be the final word, and apparently they don't make decisions, they just have the conversation and see where it goes from there. Yeah, I don't know if you know anything about that, Mark, but I always thought that was a fascinating idea.
I love that concept. I've never heard that before, Aideen, but it really is a really cool thing for two reasons, I think. One, obviously, the older people in the group are going to have more experience
Mhm.
behind what they're saying, and they're going to naturally see things with more nuance rather than seeing things as a straight black and white issue. Whereas the younger people in the group, giving them the chance to speak first gives them the chance to set the topic, and they can bring to the table what they are feeling and going, I need to know more about this, and here's what I've been thinking, and then have the opportunity to essentially ask for the wisdom of the group. And that can be such an important thing too, because oftentimes I think, especially kids that are in the junior high age, they really want to be adults,
Mhm.
but they haven't a clue. Right? They haven't a clue. When I was doing program work for some summer camps, and working with junior high kids in particular, I loved it because we would have classes on things as simple as like basic electrician stuff. How do you change out a light fixture? How do you fix a toilet that won't flush? Right? Really basic, simple stuff. But they ate it up because it was like they wanted to know how to do it. But they were too they wanted to be thought of as an adult, so they weren't gonna ask, but they really wanted to know. And this was the chance for them to just kind of be part of the group and know, and then they could have the confidence to go do it. And some of that even translates into the voice. Like, it's the confidence to actually trust our own thoughts, to trust our own feelings. And when you don't trust your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own desires, your own fears, then you're not going to trust your voice. And you're going to end up multiplying that shutdown inside yourself.
Yeah, it's like that idea of there's no wrong question as well.
Right.
And yeah, there's definitely no wrong question. I know that I've seen a parent shut down a kid before, and it was really, I mean, I don't have my own kids, so, but I suppose I maybe see it from the kids' point of view because of that. And I remember, you know, myself asking for certain things as a kid and and the response. But with this particular lady, she said, her daughter said, I want to take, I think it was dance classes. And the mom replied, what about hurling? Which is a type of sport in Ireland, you know, what about football? What about swimming? It was all sports stuff. And the parent basically gave the kid a list of alternatives that they were more interested in supporting. And by the time, you know, the kid came to the end of that conversation, they felt that the dancing is wrong thing to do, you know, that it was not appropriate, you know, which I thought was very sad.
That is really sad. Um, and having my own kids, I can kind of identify with both sides of the coin on that one, because I definitely feel for the kid in that situation. I would say that it's oftentimes easier for me to see when that's happening overhearing someone else's conversation with their kids than it
Yeah.
is while I'm in the midst of a conversation with my own kids, right? Um, and different, every kid's different, so every kid has different needs and things like that, but giving them space to really work through their own desires and what they really want. And obviously there's still times where you have to go, I can't do that for you, right? Like I can't actually give you that. Even as an adult, there's things that I want that I just can't happen right now, right? It's not a now thing. But that being said, there's still space to explore the desire. Well, what would that look like? What would you want to do? Like, what makes you excited about that, right? Right now, my daughter, we took her to see a mini circus thing, and so she is fascinated with aerial artists, um, specifically the kind that are using the like the big curtains. I forget exactly what they're called, but they
Yeah.
use the big curtains and they're doing, you know, the twists and like wrapping themselves up. Well, we happen to have a swing in our basement that is essentially a big cloth that is a loop. And so
Yeah.
they swing in that. Well, she has taken to now wrapping it around herself and like wrapping herself up and like getting up to the ceiling and stuff. And I'm like, please don't fall. It's a concrete floor. You don't do this. You have no training. But like she's watched a couple things on YouTube and now she's like doing it and she loves it. And she's 6. You're like, I don't know if you have the strength to do this, you know, but like she's exploring it. And I feel like it's not like she's like dropping, you know, from 10 feet off the ground or something like that. There's a reasonable safety to what she's doing. And no, I'm not going to build her the 15-foot thing in the backyard that she would love, but there's space to explore. You want to watch a few videos? Cool. I'm currently considering us looking up some videos of people falling, only because I want her to go, also this happens, so you can do this, that's fine, just be ready for when this also happens, right?
Yeah.
And getting that adequate preparation, but without squashing the dream, right? Without squashing the desire. Letting it be part of that exploration process. Be like, here's my concerns, but like people still do it. Go for it.
Yeah. They do. They do. And they put nets underneath, or they do whatever they need to do to
They
make
do
it
that.
safer. That's so much fun to hear that she's interested in that. Did you have anything that you wanted to do as a kid, Mark, that got shut down for you?
I was always interested in doing more athletics than what my parents really wanted me to do. Um, so my dad played football, and I really wanted to play football, American football, 18. Um,
Okay.
and so, but the problem was that my mom had 2 nephews that played football and received lifelong injuries from football. My dad also had more of a permanent neck injury. It's not bad, but it's still kind of messed up, right? He
Yeah.
still has to deal with it. Um, and it can be attributed to football. And so, you know, she has seen almost every single person that she had in her family that played football receive some kind of major injury.
Yeah.
You know, and so when I wanted to play football, it was like absolutely not. Like you can do any other sport, but like that's the one where people get really hurt. right, playing. So, you can't do that. Well, so I went to one practice with my dad, but like he took me, didn't tell her, kind of a deal. As soon as she
Yeah.
found out, it was squashed. Um, so that I did like wrestling for two practices, but then that got squashed for different reasons. So there were some things there that I wanted to explore. Um, no, I just never really had the chance to explore as much as I wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's definitely just like to welcome Gary. He's popping in there in the background. Wendy, did you have anything you wanted to pipe in on today's topic? You just need to unmute if you would like to say something.
I think it's all a bit too touches too many sensitive issues for me to be able to talk about it. The thing about well, you were talking about like in the work situation, but for me, since as a child, it was shut up, you sound awful when I sang every time. And that's still going on, even though I sing, I take lessons, I'm in two choirs, classical choir. But there you go. But I had a dream, and I don't know where it came from because I'm from a very working class family. But I used to think if I had those three wishes, one of them would be to be someone with a beautiful voice and an opera singer. I don't know where it came from, but so there you go. So it's a work in progress. But that's yeah. So it really resonates what you're saying, Mark, about all that, yeah, and Aideen, yeah. So it's amazing. I can't even believe I'm here listening to this. It's just fantastic. So
Yeah.
thank you very much. So
We don't talk about this as much as probably we need to, and I feel like the messages that we get as kids about our voice and the messages of safety, like we've spoken about, like real needing safety, don't let my 6-year-old fall on a concrete floor. That is absolutely 100% essential. But also that feeling of, adventure and freedom, and in any pursuit there's often a form of risk. I've been watching a lot of a TV show, and it's about love, and it's about how we step into asking someone, do they like us? So there's a huge risk there as well. And so we can't achieve a lot if we avoid all risks, but that belief inside us that it's okay either way, like your voice is good either way. You're if you fall, oftentimes you'll recover. We learn from our mistakes. And the parental guidance, which is supposed to create, I feel parental guidance should create what I like to think of as a playground, a safe playground. So parents want their kids to be able to run into their backyard and play on the swings and do everything, but there may need to be a fence around the edge of the garden, and as adults, we can create our own safe playgrounds by doing things within some form of a safe boundary, whether that's joining a choir that you feel people like or that that the choir director likes your voice. And I know, Wendy, you're in a choir and you get asked to do solos, so there must be people there that like your voice. Am I right?
Yeah, but it's still a double-edged thing. It really is. Yeah,
it's an internal thing, isn't it? It's an internal
It is as well. Yeah, it's a bit more complicated with my classical choir teacher, who's also a friend. So it's kind of odd anyway. But yeah, so yeah, there is that. And my teacher, who is also a friend, but he's absolutely amazing. I have progressed in that he'll say to me, okay, now sing that really like loud and belted, which I have got a strong voice. And I can hold a tune, and my rhythm's really good. But anyway, he says, okay, right, I want you to sing that now, but really belt it. And I think in my head, rather than like before, I just wouldn't have dared. In my head, I think, okay, well, now he's going to hear it. How awful, this is my real voice. This is what he'll hear how awful it is. And he says, wow, that's it. That's beautiful. And I'm like, instead of thinking, oh, he's talking, just saying that, now this is how I've progressed, in that now I just think, I just kind of laugh and laugh in myself, you know. So I don't, you know, say he's not telling the truth, but I just kind of laugh. So I have made some progress. But
Good.
yeah. So
Well, I'd love
when you're
Mark to
out,
pipe in on this, because I know that the thought pattern that, like, that we often have that repetitive thought, okay, I'm not good enough, or my voice isn't good, but it's noticing that and not following that thought pattern. So don't let yourself
yeah,
keep thinking it. But I know
yeah,
Mark will have some good advice for you as well. Mark?
You know, Wendy, when you talk about, you know, you opening up and hearing your real voice, like that's exciting to me, because that's the piece that I don't know for I don't I can't I'm not going to speak for Aideen, but in my experience, like every voice professional, that's what they dream of for the people they work with. That's the things dreams are made of for voice professionals, is someone to open up and really get a picture of what is authentically there, because your voice is so much you. It's just
yeah,
you on display. It's you in sound form. And so the more that that is seen, the more beautiful it is. And it's going to be different than anyone else in the room. And it should be, because you are different than everyone else in the room. The goal is not to sound like the person next to you. The goal is to sound as authentically you as humanly possible. And it sounds to me like you're there, and there's elements of you being there, and your teacher is seeing it there and he's loving it. But there's still something in you that maybe doesn't love yourself as much as he does.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just going to pipe in there, Wendy, because I feel that the rejection that you received as a child is just a little echo. And it, unfortunately, our parents sometimes do criticize us at a moment when it's like we're a big sponge and we take it completely on board. And there's a certain amount of forgiveness sometimes needed to be able to say to yourself, I'm sorry that I experienced that. I'm sorry that it's almost like as you as a parental energy gives you, the child, a big cuddle and says, you shouldn't have had to go through that. You shouldn't have had to be told that. And that part of you, that kind of inner child, just wants more cuddles and maybe hot chocolates and ice creams or something. I don't know. But that part of you just wants a little bit more healing. And that once that part of you starts to feel like it's you're starting to recover, adult side of you will be like, here I go.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Thank you.
love that illustration, Aideen,
Yeah.
the parent and the child, because so often it is the parent version of us that is asking for perfection. And we have this idea of what perfection is, and then we try to live up to it. But kids aren't like that. Kids just go play, right? And that vocal freedom, when we get to the place, so Wendy, when you get to the place where you can just go play, that's a really fun place to be. Like, forget about being perfect. You're already you, and the more you are, the better you are. So just play, and it becomes fun instead of so anxious.
Uh, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your story, Wendy. It's an absolute, I think, if anybody watches the replay and, they're really, your story can inspire others, and they feel less, alone. I mean, all of us have had something, that we've carried from our childhoods that we're trying to heal. But that is just it's a beautiful journey you've been on. And the emotional stuff that can go very, very fast when you start, like giving yourself that love and when that critical part of your own mind, like Mark was saying, that parental side of you that maybe is the harsh parent, starts to go, no, Wendy deserves a big cuddle now for singing so well, and high fives, and a treat at the end of the day, or whatever it might be. So I'm really pleased you were willing to share that.
Thank you.
You're awesome. I really love what Mark, what you were saying there about each person's your main goal is to be authentically you. That's it. Yeah. I'd love to invite Dr. Gary Wohlman to come and talk to us. If you're there, you can't stay. No, you can't make it. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we had an issue with the link, so unfortunately that didn't work out for you. Yeah, I had sent it a few times, and maybe you missed those emails early on. Do you want to unmute and tell us the frustration? You can certainly speak. Oh, he seems to have disappeared. Not to worry. Grania, would you like to say anything today, or are you good to go?
Yeah, no, I think it's all fantastic. It's just great to hear it, it's really helpful. I do sing a little bit. I have been singing quite a lot in my local church. I did a lot of solo singing because during COVID they weren't allowed to have choirs, and that was great for me, to practice. But yeah, of course you're going to compare yourself, sometimes it's like, what's the point? There's so many amazing singers out there, But I do love it. I love it so much. It's just great. There's Gary now.
Yeah. My dad actually played accordion his whole life. And at one point he said, I'm not going to play anymore because there's so many other better players. And what's the point? And I was like devastated, because to me, there's a place for each of us, because I'm not going to have another accordion player that's my dad. So he has me as the audience member straight away.
And did he continue?
He doesn't. He plays a bit on. Look, here's a beautiful story for you, right? We were hanging out at over the summer, and my dad said, "Oh, I've written a melody," and he basically played a melody on the piano, and he was like, "I'm going to get so and so to write lyrics," and I was like, "Well, Dad, I've been writing lyrics, and I read him some of my lyrics, and da da da." And I don't see myself as much of a songwriter. Here's the next thing I need to gain confidence in. But he seemed interested in the lyrics. So I've actually started writing a song with my dad. It's called Onward, and it's very traditional Irishy. So I think there's hope for us all, if he's doing something with music, that's better than nothing. But I haven't heard him play the accordion in a decade, I'd say. But, that's for him to decide. I hate to think of people giving it up because they're not going to be as good as someone else, because if you enjoy it, then you should continue if you can.
Yeah, well, as you said, it's your authentic voice, so there's nobody else has your voice.
Yeah.
So it's such an interesting thing. It's like, oh yeah, right, my voice is different to others, even though you constantly hear people and it's like, they're amazing.
Yeah. There's that thing as well, as I can't sing after so and so because they're so different, and they're so much better. But
yeah, but it must be on all levels. Like you must have, Electric Picnic and all those amazing festivals and concerts. There must be that same inner voice for them, even at that level. If somebody's coming on and then the next person's coming on and then the next person's coming on, there must be a little voice there for everyone.
That imposter syndrome affects everybody. And if you read about, very successful singers or very successful people in different levels of life, most of them will say they experience that voice that says, why am I here? Why? I wonder how I got here. Surely somebody's going to figure out that I'm not supposed to be here in some way.
Yeah.
Aideen, if I could speak to that for a minute, I just talked to a guy he was a trained opera singer. He's moved on into doing other business things in corporate now. However, he was talking with me, and he mentioned the fact that his favorite tenor of all time, whom I cannot remember the name of right at the moment, but he described him as just this amazing powerhouse tenor that never was able to overcome stage fright, was literally had to be pushed onto stage for some of his biggest performances in front of large crowds, and he eventually completely quit altogether, solely due to not being able to overcome stage fright. So that idea of just not being good enough and that anxiety in the midst of performance, I mean, even at the highest level, that you'd think this person has made it when all of these people are coming to hear them, and it's still there. It's still there.
So true. I mean, the thing that we all need to know is that we're enough, but I remember doing a competition. It was like one of these, singing things where you get test, they check the boxes and everything. And I sang Think of Me from the Phantom of the Opera, I guess. And it's about standing beside your father's grave, and that emotion of your dad, having this connection with your dad. And I've just spoken a little bit about my dad, and I certainly have had my own ups and downs with my connection with my dad, and thankfully this summer seems to have been a big change in that. But I was singing, and at the very top high note, a little crack came in my voice, and I stopped for a second, and then I continued singing. And the adjudicator, who was taking all the notes and judging me, he was saying, and you had that little moment, but you recovered pretty well, as if the moment was the worst part of my performance. But I knew, well, I was a bit older at this point, I was probably in my 30s. I knew that if I had been in a regular audience, that would have been the moment that people would have loved, because that was the moment where my emotions really came to the surface, and it was something that people would relate to, that you wouldn't be able to hold that emotion perfectly in that moment. So I had to, I forgave myself very quickly for that. I think that never take too much credit for things is one of my mottos, and never take too much blame, because none of us perfect. And in most situations, a slightly less than perfect performance is absolutely adequate. And in fact, most people don't do what they want to do with their lives because they're trying to be too perfect in situations, which is unreasonable in many situations. Do you find you deal a lot with perfectionism, Mark, in your work?
A lot of times there is perfectionism. A lot of times when people's voices are shut down, it's because they haven't measured up to someone's version of perfectionism, and that can mean themselves. It can mean themselves. So we can actually do ourselves a disservice by shutting down our own voices, because if we can't be perfect, then I'm not going to do it. I certainly don't want anyone to see me try. And that comes out more than in just simply the voice. I like to think of it as like an attitude of human activity. Some people won't try a new hobby unless they're convinced they can be really good at it, right? Some people would love to try archery, but they're scared to death of like having to be a beginner and learn. Being a beginner is just so uncomfortable, right? Whereas you compare that to even the childhood attitudes that you were talking about, Aideen, of like play. And you go out and it's like, we get to try to shoot a bow and arrow. Yes, please. Like, we're going to be really bad at it, but it's going to be fun, right? And they're all about it, and it's going to be great, right? If we can just rediscover that piece, I think that helps us supersede all of that internal perfectionism and other people's as well. How frustrated do kids get when adults try to make them shoot the arrow perfectly the very first time? Well, you missed the target. But the arrow went like generally that direction. That's good. That's a good start, right? Things like that. And just like try new stuff. bring new things to yourself and to your life, and just keep trying new things and learn to be comfortable with the uncomfortableness of being a beginner. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, I definitely know that, because especially I work a lot with adult singers who are beginner singers, and it's that feeling of just reducing your levels of self-criticism and enjoying the journey. So I always think enjoying the journey is way more important. And even, I've seen this sometimes with people who are professional singers, that they're waiting for this one major milestone event that's going to define whether they were successful or unsuccessful as a singer. And sometimes that's a big danger zone as well.
Yeah, it is. And I've seen that sometimes that is defined by how many people you're singing in front of, how much you're getting paid to sing. It could be defined by what song you're singing. If there's a particular role that you've just always dreamed of having, and you have to get to that role, right? So, I'll give, for instance, it's a personal example. Like one of my dream roles is to play Phantom in Phantom of the Opera. Will I ever get a chance to do that? I have no idea. There's so many things that play into that, right? It's not like you just go and sign up somewhere to go do that. I think that, one of the things that's kind of like boosted my hopes of that is the fact that like it's coming off Broadway, which means the rights will likely be released. And so you're going to have like local theaters everywhere trying to put on little Phantom of the Operas, that are not going to be that great and whatever, but like that's going to give me some chances to be like, ooh, let's go try. Let's go have some fun, right? But not because I want to be an amazing Phantom, just because I want to take on the character for a little bit and have some fun with it. Because I'm sure whatever Phantom of the Opera I'm in is probably going to be whatever. Like it's not going to be the Toronto version or the New York City version or the Vegas version, right? And it doesn't even matter. But allowing those dreams and stuff to like not define success, but simply to define fun. It'd be fun, right? It would be fun if, right? And we all have those things, the funs.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. The fun part is so important. Forget about that.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, look, the emotional response, and I have Gary there in the background because he got a bit stressed because he didn't manage to get in here when he wanted to get in here, and it was basically my fault because the link was incorrect. But our emotional response to situations affects whether or not we can have fun or not. And this idea of, we expect a certain thing to happen a certain way and it doesn't happen a certain way, and it can be very, very distressing. But there's a space for us to express that too, and I mean, a lot of the songs in the Phantom of the Opera are sad songs about, nobody gets me and nobody understands, and, I'm a pariah, basically. There's roles that we may need to play out. There's roles that we may need to sing about. I always feel like the song you pick helps you to transform an energy. It helps you to transform something within you that may need change.
Absolutely. Every song connects with some basic human emotion. And I know that, so one of my core philosophies, especially when you're performing and singing as a performance in front of other people, I always like to say, not every actor is a singer, but every singer has to be an actor. Because you're taking on a role when you sing a song, right? You're taking on a role of some kind. And to be a good actor, you have to be able to connect that character's emotion to the real emotion that you feel. You have to understand what that emotion feels like, and kind of pump that into it. One of the most emotional songs that I could possibly sing is the song from Les Miserables, Empty Chairs and Empty Tables. Not because I've really ever experienced losing someone in war. I haven't. But I've experienced a lot of grief, even if it's a grief of, that period of life that I really loved is over. And it's probably never coming back. And that's a real grief. And if I can connect to that, it really helps me move into the grieving aspect of those other things. You can do that with any song, right? You know, and things that you love, and you know, love songs, and moving into those spaces as well. But human emotion is such a big part of what I do, and a lot of times the people that have had their voice shut down oftentimes don't, by Gary, don't have the ability to tap into their emotions, and that's one of their biggest hindrances, is just they've really cut themselves off from feeling anything, and that has to be rejuvenated and worked on.
I'd like to speak to that.
Wonderful, Gary.
I was
Thank you.
just about to leave because I was feeling way too stressed out to join the show. I didn't even realize when I was speaking earlier that I was on mute. I'm so sorry. I got the wrong link for the show, and I tried about 20 times to get onto the show. And I'm now feeling the emotion you're talking about. I'm feeling really angry, really agitated, really upset with myself, and I don't want to project anything to anyone else. And how to use this creatively. You know, I noticed a lot of my paintings and a lot of my performances, when I do performance art as a court jester, and some of the best creations I've had is when I have torment inside, and I ritualize it into a form of activation to harness the energy in a way that's empowering, nurturing, and inspiring. But right now, I'm angry, and I just want to kind of, you know, authenticize. I was gonna leave and not say hello because I was just saying I was just gonna feel, you know, curse words, and I don't want to deal with anybody because I don't feel like I'm fit, you know, other than to be tied. I feel like hitting and kicking and screaming. But that's my energy right now, and it's authentic. I'm not going to hide it. And I thought, well, you know, rather than just get off the show and go, hey, you're right, you know, the show must go on, and we've got to tap the energies no matter what's happening. So I thought I'd just share something authentic rather than a performance, and just really be real. And I'm going to go.
There's no need for you to leave too soon, Gary. Honestly, I mean, I apologize sincerely, but I think I really believe that we have to feel safe to express our anger at times, and it's very important that we find somewhere safe to say that. And I'm responsible
and to do it
for
in a healthy way, because there's so many ways when people, because I've been on all sides of the equation, all sides of the fence, inside, outside, one side, the other side, the upside down side, the never imagined the fence existed side. And in projecting anger with the three fingers going back and pointing the finger, it's offensive. People get pushed away. Yet I wanted to step on the show and go, you know what? I'm gonna find a way to share and own it. I'm not gonna blame someone for sending me the wrong link. I got the wrong link, and I never saw the new link till half an hour after the show came in. I get 100 emails an hour. It's ridiculous these days. It's been most of my time clearing my email list. So, you know, there's got to be a creative way of dealing with this, and I do have a knack for turning difficulty, conflict, despair, shame, anger, blame into creative rituals. That's my superpower. I love doing that, and I'm good at it. So it's not a problem that I'm having a problem here with the show. I thought I'd just now include it rather than go, no, I can't do this. No, I can. And I can do it in a creative way that's supportive to everyone. And that's why I wanted to get on without just jumping ship.
Gary, thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing that. That means the world to me that you have done that for yourself, but then you felt the safety of this group right here. That, to me, that's an honor. That's an honor that,
it was
that you
what
would
you were
consider
sharing
that.
specifically, Mark, when you were saying that, you know, the actors have to be the singers have to be the actors. Everyone's performing, and went, you know what? I'm going to do this. I can do this. I don't have to be offensive or offended. I can own my energy, and I can support the conversation by being present with what is, rather than trying to be an uplifting presence or put on a mask. No, let's include the genuine emotion as, hey, if we can't be ourselves, who are in an acting, who are we going to be when we're really putting on roles? You know, got to start with ourselves first. So that's what I'm practicing with you all right now. And it feels good to be vulnerable and strong, and feeling empowered with you all. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you, working through it with us and not letting it simmer so much, or not letting it simmer beyond this hour. I know myself, the hardest things that I've had to say to my husband were the things I knew that he would want to reject, that he would feel like he was being rejected by me expressing myself. And when we feel that it's not appropriate to be angry for even a moment or two, we are holding that as an energy. It's like the emotions build, and that can be very bad for our health and our well-being. And it also creates a block between the people involved. I mean, I'm just glad that you were able to speak about it, because voice isn't just about sounding good on a stage or sounding good when you sing. It's about that. It's about being real.
It's about being genuine. I was just putting in the chat for both Mark and Gra, because it's so late for me to join you. I know it's the end of your show. This is my Calendly link. I'd love to connect with you further and deepen our conversation, because I'm jumping in at the end and I feel a bit sad. Now I'm past the anger. Now I'm feeling a little sad. Now do I have more time to connect with you? So that's how you can reach me. I love a deeper dive with both of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wendy,
and Wendy as well. Yeah.
Sorry.
And Gary's gonna be on my podcast soon too. So.
And Wendy.
Yeah. And Mark as well. Just to let you know, Mark is running an event about freeing the voice this Saturday. Mark, do you want to talk about that before we start winding things down?
Sure, I'd love to. So this Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, it will be on Zoom. It's likely to run about an hour is the expectation, but it's a place for you to bring the places where you have struggled sharing your voice. So whether that is a song, bring a song. If it is a story from your past that you have struggled to share and acknowledge, bring your story. If it's a hurt that you maybe even still consistently struggle with, bring your hurt. If it's something you want or that you think is delightful and fun and pleasurable to you, that is maybe not something you want to share in your common life for whatever reason, it may not be welcome there, bring that. But it's a place for us to gather. We're going to talk about just why it's hard for us to share those things, and it's going to give an opportunity for a few people that come to be coached through how they might take a step forward in their authentic expression in their life. So my hope is that it will be the first of many gatherings, but this is the inaugural one, and all of you will be welcome to join. Tell you what I do.
Do you want me to put an email address or something, Mark, or?
Yeah, what you can do is, if you want, I'll put my email address in the chat. And if you would like to come, just please send me an email, and then I will make sure that I get the invite to you. Okay.
Perfect. I am hoping to be there as well, Mark, because I love what you do. I love your work. And I know that you've got a big mission as well to help people who in some way have been told what their story should be through their religious background or through their family background, and been, basically indoctrinated in ways how life should be and how we should act, and how to dismantle those things and how to start reclaiming your own version of your own reality.
Yeah, and not just swinging to have someone else or someone different tell you how you should be. I find that is true so often. If someone is used to, especially in the religious circle. So I was a pastor for several years, and it's easy to see where in some church circles there is a severe indoctrination process that takes place, to where you just kind of go through life like this to anything that doesn't agree with you. But then when you finally encounter something else that you find to be more accepting of you than maybe the circles that you've been in, you almost do the same thing, but now it's just a different source. And so it can be this pendulum swing, like, oh, everything over here, you know, and really giving yourself the freedom and the power of choice to be able to choose which pieces you want. That is really, really important. But it does take time, it does take a process, and it does take practice. It's not something that happens overnight. And that's what this group is for, is to have a safe place to practice, where it's not going to ruin your real relationships, and where you can do it in a community that is safe, that understands what's going on, that is going to accept you and love you no matter what you bring to the table.
I absolutely love it. I just love what you do, Mark. So that we'll be winding up now. I will be putting contact details for Mark and Gary in the show notes if you're watching on YouTube. And I look forward to seeing Mark on Saturday, and I'll put some Mark's contact details so if anyone's interested. Grania saying in the chat that Gary's message is so valuable. And so thank you, Gary, for that. And we really appreciate—
Very important message. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm very pleased that you did manage to make it. And I'm sorry that my attempts to get the right link to you didn't reach you in time to stop that stressful response. So, and I look forward to, I think, Gary, we're going to be talking very soon for my podcast, and that will be something then I can share with everybody afterwards. So, and I'm really excited to find out more about your story, because I know you have a very rich story around voice, and you've way more experience than Mark and myself, actually. And we want to get the juicy wisdom from you as soon as we can, and the podcast will be a lovely opportunity to do that.
Thank you so much.
So thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Grania. And thank you, Mark. And it's I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today. And I look forward to our next voice and song session, which will be in about another 4 to 6 weeks. And I'll be letting everyone know when that's happening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aideen. So enriching. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Grania.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks, Aideen.
Bye-bye. Jazz hands. Alrighty. Take care, guys.